We are here. Welcome into the Take the North podcast, along with Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune. I am Mark Grote of Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. The 2025 NFL owners meetings wrapping up in Palm Beach, Florida. Weedsy is back home. It's been a while since we have both conducted this podcast in the same region because you were off for a little while and I had rotating hosts. So here we are, Dan. Good to have you back. How are you, my friend?
I'm back under gray Chicago skies, so I'm no longer as happy and healthy as you purported me to be the other day.
Yeah, you don't look
just
as
much energy.
Yeah, you don't look. You don't look
thanks,
the same.
Mark.
You've got the hoodie on. It looks like you've gone a little pale. I don't know what's going on. The teeth aren't sparkling the same as they were the other day.
It's just different here, isn't it? And so, but anyway, I've got the same energy. I'll bring you the same juice to this podcast today.
Yeah, and we got a lot to discuss on this version of Take the North. We're going to get into some of the stadium talk. We're going to get to some of the potential succession plan with the Chicago Bears and what hey, it's the owners meeting. What is George McCaskey saying? What is Kevin Warren saying out there? So we're going to get into a whole bunch of that. Couple things right off the top first. We were just discussing this off the air, how excited we are about this, and even starting to discuss what we may want to do on this upcoming episode. Ladies and gentlemen of Take the North, coming up on Thursday, April 17th, we are doing something that we have not done before. We are going to do a live Take the North show from 6 to 7 on 670 The Score, broadcasting live from the Blue Cross Blue Shield performance stage. And here's the unprecedented part, because the Score has done plenty of shows and we've had rock bands come through that stage there at the Score where you will go. If you, the Take the North fan, the Bears fan, the football fan, would like to be a part of this live studio audience for that show, you can be by going to 670thescore.com/contest to enter for your chance to come in. It's free. It's easy. I'll even take you down by the Score Studios if you want to see what the mighty Score Studios look like. So it sounds like a pretty cool night, Dan. I'm looking forward to it, and we're not that far away from it.
Yeah, this is a message to our audience. Get your fannies in those seats and let's pack the place and let's have fun.
Yeah, seriously, we are going to have fun. We're going to be interactive with you guys, and I think it'll be a great experience for everybody. And if it works, guess what? We'll probably do a lot more of them. So be a part of this unprecedented premiere coming up on April 17th.
It's history.
It's history.
Yeah.
670thescore.com/contest. All right, let's get into it. Dan, before we really get into the juice of things, I keep hearing about an airplane incident on your way back from the owners' meetings. Dan, this is where you take over and tell us a little story about something that happened on the flights.
Much less exciting than my encounter with Serena Williams earlier in the week. We are referring to this as the incident. That's all you and Studs know it by from our text thread last night. I said, I will save the details for the recording of the podcast. And here we are. I had hoped to have Larry Mayer of ChicagoBears.com join us on this episode of Take the North, but he has been restricted by the powers that be at Haugh from joining a podcast, even though he was only being asked to join the podcast as a witness to, quote, the incident. So let's get into the incident.
So Larry's not allowed to come on. Okay.
I was hoping he could pop in here because Larry's color for this story would have added quite a bit to the wrinkles of it. But so it's Wednesday evening. We are boarding American Airlines flight 1398 from Palm Beach to O'Hare. It is a flight that is supposed to include 4 members of the Chicago Bears beat corps: myself, Larry Mayer, Adam Haugh, who decided to get off that flight, fearful of weather, canceling it, and take another flight the next morning. Luke Canellis is in first class. He does not get a front row seat to the incident. The incident occurs about an hour and 20 minutes into this flight. And Grote, I got to tell you, I can't fall asleep on planes. I just can't. I fell asleep on this plane before we taxied away from the gate.
Wow.
For whatever reason, I was doing the whole head knot, your head's in your chest.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're
maybe.
I'm like, oh man, like this is going to be a juicy plane nap here. And I'm looking forward to this. I fall asleep. I'm in an exit row 17C. Just set the scene here, right? So that's an aisle seat. That's very important to this story. Really deep nap. You got to love a really deep nap. About 30 minutes into my nap, I feel something forcefully hit my foot in the aisle. Okay. Like physically, like, whoa, geez. I spring up, I wake up, I'm like, what the heck just happened? The woman in 16C sitting right in front of me keeps jerking her head around, turning around, looking with a look of horror. And I was like, what just happened? Did I just kick this woman's chair so forcefully in my nap that I like injured her or something? Why is she giving me this look?
Yeah.
Now flight attendants are coming running up and down the aisle with napkins. What just happened here?
Oh,
somebody up in about row 12 decided this was the time that they were going to get sick.
Oh,
they got out into the aisle, and on a sprint from their row, a few rows above in front of me, to the bathroom in the back of the plane, started projectile vomiting.
Oh,
they caught seats 14C, 15C, 16C, 17C where I'm sitting, and 18C behind me with a pretty good. So now you're like, what just happened? So the woman in front of me who's giving the dirty look says, a gentleman just threw up and he just ran back to the bathroom. And I'm like, oh man, that sucks. Guy behind me taps me and says, just want to let you know it's all over your right shoulder. Thankfully for me, Grote, I was wearing a zip-up hoodie. I was able to remove that hoodie rather rapidly,
and
ask one of the flight attendants for a trash bag, put it in there. I didn't throw it away. I did bring it home. It's been washed 3 times here today.
I'd have thrown it away.
Like, also got my hat, right? So now, right. Like now this is the bad stuff. Before the flight began, Larry Mayer sitting in 15B. Key detail on this was I was giving him crap for getting stuck in a middle seat. You never want to get stuck in a middle seat. Larry kind of benefited from being in the middle seat. His seatmate sitting right next to him, who her name was Claire. She was Irish. Larry started calling her Claire something when she left us at baggage claim, because we went on to recount this story at baggage claim after the flight ended. And Claire something was the first one to get hit. And then 4 rows behind her, it just kept coming, right? Like
it's like The Exorcist, man.
It's insane. And so Larry is so engrossed with her at baggage claim. And you know Larry well enough here, Grote, right? Like to know that Larry's a very jovial and social human being.
Yeah.
Larry is twice in jovial and social if you happen to be an attractive female, right? Like we know. So
they get it. Yes, he will make a
talking to Claire or something so intently that I'm like, he must know her. They must be friends. It might be a relative. I'm not sure what's going on here. I feel like we were bonded for life through that experience. She goes on to tell me, I think it's good luck. You know, I was like, I don't know if getting thrown up on a plane is necessarily good luck. And then, so this may become part of our Take the North rhetoric here. She said she was in Italy one time on a vacation, and there were so many bad things happening in the place they were staying. And like they would find like 2 dead rats in the corner of like the bathroom. And then the guy who was managing the place would come up and say, it's a good luck. It's a good luck. So now we've agreed that anything bad that happens, we're just going to say to each other, it's a good luck. It's a good luck. You know, Jaden Daniels hits a Hail Mary as time expires. It's a good luck. That's where we're going with this. Awful story. I'm going to open it up to questions in 1 second. But the last thing I'm going to tell you is, first of all, the guy sitting next to me in 17B, he says to me at the end of the flight, he says, and to think, I got on this plane bitching that I had a middle seat. And I said, yeah. I said, yeah, you kind of lucked out on the deal here. And the other part of it goes, you're never going to have an experience like that again. I said, au contraire, because this is the second time in my life that I've been thrown up on an airplane. The last time I was thrown up on an airplane was in 2016, going to the NFL owners meetings in Florida.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
The last wrinkle on this, and George McCaskey's a witness to this one. 3 years ago, on the way back from the Breakers in Palm Beach from the owners meeting, somebody died on the plane that me and the McCaskeys were taking home.
Good God, man.
So I don't know how much of good luck that I really need on these flights to and from the owners meetings. Do you have anything that you need to ask me?
Oh my God. I certainly do not want to take any flights with you to the owners meetings. That's for sure. That is number one. But
come next year. Just let's see.
That is hilarious. I like my gut wants to be like, I'm sorry this happened, because that's just awful. But there's at some point in time when you're in the midst of something like that, you're just like, screw it. Okay. It's like when you know what the analogy is? It's like when you're outside in the city of Chicago, like I find myself a lot, all of a sudden it starts raining. You don't have an umbrella and you're like, screw it. I'm going to get wet and I'm just going to have to take it. That's what I'm seeing with you. You're like, Everybody's getting vomited on. There's nothing we could do about it. Embrace it. And you know what? Make it good luck.
Listen, me and 18C spent some time back in the lavatory in the back getting cleaned up. I was very fortunate, as I said, that I was wearing a jacket that I could take off. If it was just my shirt, I was not going to fly the rest of the flight bare-chested, right? Like that wasn't going to be a good look. But I needed to get that off of me. You got to get rid of the smell. But I could not eat. Like, I bought a sandwich and some stuff to eat on the plane. And I'm just like, I can't eat. I don't even want to put my hands near my mouth. I don't really want to do anything. That is the crisis that occurs with me on planes from
that's amazing. The only thing, this story is so not even close to yours, but I will just tell it really quickly because it was about 2016 or 2015 when I was doing Cubs pre and post, and I was lucky enough to be on the team's charter flight, the Cubs charter flight, wherever they went. And there was 2 to a row as the way they did it on these charters. And the person next to me started utilizing the little vomit bag, the little bag that you've
never seen that used, right?
Never seen it used ever.
And it's there for a reason.
It's there for a reason. And they've been there since 1976, right? Like, that nobody's replacing these things.
One other footnote to this.
Yeah.
Larry, using some of the free swag that he got from the NFL owners meetings in Florida, was able to give Claro something. I think it was a sweatshirt. She had to remove her blazer that she was wearing that got thrown
honorable.
up on. And so the honorable Larry Mayer did the chivalrous thing and gave away some of his free NFL swag to Claro something, who I hope becomes a fan of the Take the North podcast. Maybe even shows up to that live episode here in a couple of weeks.
Oh, that would be awesome to see Claro. Claro, you are invited anytime, and we'll keep Larry away. Don't worry.
That's a promise.
Yeah. No, we love Larry Mayer. He's the best. But on this plane, on this charter plane filled with Cubs people, the person next to me is utilizing the cheap barf bag and doing it in a very efficient manner. Like nothing's getting on me, and like I'm there kind of helping the person,
Okay.
But I'd never seen that person sitting next to me, ladies and gentlemen. This is the rest of the story. That person sitting next to me, Pat Hughes.
Wow.
Pat Hughes, who just got a bug. Like Pat Hughes, like he lives the cleanest lifestyle of anybody. Like the beautiful part about Pat is every flight we were on, he ordered salmon and broccoli, and he is a health crazed person. He just caught something. He was thrown up and he did it in a neat, clean way. And then I will tell you, because he's so revered and loved, the head trainer for the Cubs, after we landed, took him to a hospital, got him all fixed up and taken care of. But that was, ironically, the first time I had seen those barf bags used was by the Hall of Famer, the great one, Pat Hughes.
Barf bag made of paper, extra strong.
It seems to Ronnie, it seems to be a higher temperature. It's pretty nice. That is beautiful. Dan, is there anything else? Like, I feel you did it great.
We can get on with the show now.
I just want to make sure I did it complete justice. All right, let's get on with the show. And let's get to some of the serious stuff here, because it is the owners meeting. So George McCaskey and Kevin Warren were speaking. I think that we should probably talk about Kevin Warren first. Dan, you were there. I listened to a lot of it, took a lot in, talked to some people, and it does certainly sound like that at the very least, Arlington Heights, in terms of a stadium, is back in play and maybe has more momentum than the downtown site right now.
Yeah, and so we won't waste a lot of time setting this up. We'll get right into Kevin Warren in his own words, answering a question on, I guess it was Wednesday morning, about whether his focus for the stadium project was still firmly on downtown or if anything had changed. And so here's a little bit of an exchange with Kevin Warren that gives us an update on the stadium project.
So the focus now is both downtown and Arlington Heights. And so, one thing, I've said it before, these are not linear processes or projects. They take time. They take a lot of energy and effort. I am very, very pleased with where we are. I think we collectively as a group are where we thought we would be. I know specifically I'm where I thought we would be at this point in time. We just finished Q1 last night, starting Q2 now. The pace will definitely pick up, and we're fortunate to have optionality. And as I said, downtown from a museum campus standpoint, there's been some discussion about the Michael Reese site, but then also Arlington Heights is I keep going back to it. It's an absolutely fantastic piece of land. I thank George and his family. I had a hefty workout this morning, so I'm still trying to cool down. Aaron, can you cool down a little bit in here? for having the foresight, the McCaskey family, led by George, to have the foresight to purchase that land in Arlington Heights. But to be able to find 326 acres that close to a wonderful city is difficult to do. I don't know if it exists anywhere in the country. And so where we are right now with both the museum campus, downtown, and especially Arlington, is that we're really getting serious about the feasibility studies. And so we're doing traffic studies, not only for Arlington Heights, because we have to be sensitive to the surrounding communities, but also to the surrounding communities, and feasibility studies, financial feasibility studies. You know, as you all are aware, our financial markets are settling in. I mean, they're moving around, and so every single day we're looking at the cost of raw materials to build a stadium, what steel costs, how that's coming along, and then the financial markets, because what you have to do is you get these deals structured, and then it comes down simultaneously is to make sure you put the capital stack together that it makes financial sense. And so we've been working on that. So I feel really good with the options downtown, and then especially with Arlington Heights. They had the
Dan, what'd you make of that? You were there. What'd you make of what he said? And can you add any other insight from maybe some of your conversations out there?
No question. Not surprising, but certainly notable. That was without question, almost a year to the day from that presentation on the museum campus, or envisioning the museum campus. This was a pivot back toward Arlington Heights. This was almost an admission that yes, there was zero momentum moving towards the museum campus project. We have this 326 acre piece of land in Arlington Heights that is team owned, a huge canvas, has many perks to it. It's now time to turn our attention there. And so this is now a critical, in Kevin Warren's words, a critical 3 to 6 month period to try to create some movement in that regard. The Bears have been adamant, with Kevin Warren as the voice of this, and saying that there will be a shovel in the ground, or as Kevin phrased it on Wednesday, dirt will be moved in 2025. And so dirt needs to be moved, and they've got to figure out how all this comes together. There's a lot of layers to it, but what was your initial reaction, understanding how passionate they were not that long ago about the museum campus?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things here. I always find it interesting when general managers, owners, whomever, decision makers in any sport and any organization start to use the phrase nonlinear. That's typically an excuse for the way things are going. And and he's right. He's right. We always hear nonlinear development for players. Usually at the point you hear a coach say nonlinear, it means things aren't going well. So they are back at the point where things are nonlinear. And when I say things not going well, I mean for Kevin Warren, because things are starting to look bad as far as the downtown option is concerned, and things look a lot more welcoming in Arlington Heights. So I agree with all that. It's right there for you. The momentum is Arlington Heights. He mentioned that. He mentioned Michael Reese. The one thing that I will say about this is Kevin Warren has done way too much, said too much, has had way too much passion about the project of downtown for me to believe that that is over. Same thing from the George McCaskey standpoint. And we're going to get into some of the succession stuff and the pride that he has in owning this organization. I think George McCaskey would like it for his legacy if the Bears were to stay downtown as well. So in other words, to wrap up my thoughts on this, Dan, while I do think it feels like the betting money is on Arlington Heights, this doesn't mean that downtown is done and out, and this could be some back and forth and just a smart play by the Bears in a lot of ways.
I'm going to challenge your sense on George McCaskey there in a minute with some audio from George McCaskey from yesterday that'll look at that. But one of the things that's always made sense to me about the Arlington Heights project is that you have so much land to work with. And Kevin acknowledged that again yesterday. You're learning things as a sports reporter through these processes. I didn't know what the phrase pad ready meant. I
learned that yesterday.
I used that a couple of times, and it's like, okay, they've got the land, they bulldozed the grandstands, they've surveyed everything. Everything is good to go there in order to build something. And so that's something you learn. But there's so much land out there, right? This 326 acre property where you can build a stadium and then still have hundreds of acres of land left over for an entertainment district, for hotels, for residences, for a mixed use complex, potentially for some athletic fields that could be used for youth sports that would make this a destination. And so if you're looking for your imagination to be stimulated on how you could build not only a stadium, but an entire surrounding stadium community, that Arlington Heights property makes 10 times the sense that the museum campus downtown does. To that end, let's hear from the chairman of the Bears, George McCaskey, on why the Arlington Heights property is appealing to him, and then a follow-up from me that elicited a pretty humorous answer.
George Halas identified it more than 50 years ago as an ideal place for a Bear stadium. And I don't know if anything that has happened since then changed that evaluation. As Kevin mentioned, it's pad ready. It's got the Metro stop, plenty of acreage. Topography is good. Can be an outstanding, beautiful green space with enhancements to Salt Creek. But the downtown locations have their advantages too. Kevin has said it since he's been here. Beautiful spot by the lake. It's idyllic. And if there were sufficient improvements in infrastructure to make that location accessible 365 days of the year, it can be a fantastic opportunity itself.
George, do you share your imagination with people that are leading the project in terms of things that, like in a grand world, you would like to see included with the stadium project, things that would be either fun amenities or things that you would like to incorporate?
Well, I wanted a retractable roof, and they told me that's not going to happen. And I wanted a field on a tray, and they said that's not going to happen. And I wanted 80,000 seats, and they said that's not going to happen. So my big three, I'm 0 for 3.
Well, I think that was good. I think the part,
poor George.
Dan, yeah, poor George. I think the part, Dan, that maybe you said that you're going to challenge me on is the part where George McCaskey says Halas identified it. And I get it. Like, that's pretty strong. Halas identified Arlington Heights. It's pad ready, as he said.
Yeah.
And it's as he said, beautiful. He sounded like he was describing like a great dish at a 5-star restaurant, didn't it? The way he was, it's beautiful. It's pad ready. It's beautiful. It's idyllic. But Dan, guess what? I think he believes that stuff. I think he might be playing the game a little bit. I think that there's a negotiating ploy here. And I'm not saying that I think that they think it's more realistic at this point that it's going to end up in Arlington Heights. And I think they've conceded some of that, but that doesn't mean there isn't a last ditched effort going on right now to maybe see the light of the downtown for the state.
We'll have to see which direction it takes. Obviously, the momentum among lawmakers, legislators, politicians has to create something in the Bears' favor at some point. So the Bears are going to have to, I don't know if modify is the right verb, but they're going to have to do things to their lobbying efforts to start to get some of this support for subsidization. Now, listen, Kevin Warren has been adamant for a while now that the Bears are planning to fund the construction of the stadium on their own. They're not asking for any public subsidies there. I think they would get close to $300,000 under the NFL's G5 loan program. You would have to try to figure out how to raise the rest of the $2 billion costs to build the stadium. What they are asking for in terms of public funding is infrastructure costs and things to build roads and highways and sewers and transportation and those things that come along with that. Kevin Warren understands what goes into that. The cost of that infrastructure improvement seems to be about half in Arlington Heights, around $700 million as opposed to in the city where it would be almost double that, 1.5. And so that's a situation that you have to keep tabs on as well. The Bears have gotten greater tax certainty from the school districts in Arlington Heights and the surrounding suburbs out there in terms of their tax, I guess, what's the word? The tax obligations on the property while the stadium is being built. And so there's an understanding amongst the school districts that the Bears are good there. They are still seeking longer term tax certainty in Arlington Heights to make sure that they don't build a stadium and then 10 years in, all of a sudden you get this massive spike and it's unaffordable. So there's a lot that goes into this. The financial piece of this is massive. None of us have a clear understanding of how the Bears are going to fund an entire $2 billion stadium project. You do get these vibes. I think the Dolphins and the Bills have dipped into private equity and selling a portion of their team to private equity. That's on the table for the Bears if they want to consider it. If they want to use that money to help them build a stadium, they can do so. Complicated, right? There's a lot here. And as you hear from Kevin Warren, there's also urgency here because if you're going to get a shovel in the ground in 2025, you got to get things going and you got to get people on your side and you got to get people speaking on your behalf. I don't know which direction it's going to go, but I have a feeling that by the time the season starts here, you and I will have a lot more clarity on where this project is headed.
To be continued. Let us get to our 2-minute drill.
Oh, we got our ownership stuff first here.
Oh, we do?
Yes, the succession plan for
my bad.
For the football team.
I'm sorry. I ripped off George. Yes, that's huge because obviously Virginia McCaskey has died, and so the question has been since then, other than just people being sensitive and honoring Virginia and her legacy, the hard questions have to be asked now. And finally, you guys, those Bears reporters who were in Palm Beach, Dan Wiederer included, finally started to get some answers about the future of the Bears organization and what hands it will be in. Dan, what can you tell us here?
Yeah, well, let's let George tell us a little something first, and then we'll unpack it a little bit. But George was asked during his availability on Wednesday about the outside curiosity about what happens with the ownership of the team and how his mother's shares get divided up. And here's a little bit of that exchange from Wednesday in Palm Beach.
Said for many years that we intend to own the Bears for as long as possible. Another 100 years would be great. She set it up for us to accomplish that. She gave us the playbook. She coached us up. Now we got to execute the plan, and we're prepared to do that. We got to stick together. So, thank you.
Is there, along those lines, will there be any sort of shift or change in the ownership structure? Maybe the organization. I know you talked about the shares and all of that. Do you anticipate any changes to what the structure currently is set up as?
No, there shouldn't be. Like I said, she set it up for a smooth transition, and it's a credit to her. I mean, we hear from in law school I heard stories about people who just couldn't contemplate their mortality, and as a result it created a lot of confusion and problems for the family, and she had the foresight to set it up so we don't have that problem.
George, to that end, how as a family, how as an ownership group have you guys balanced the forward-looking strategy of what's best for the franchise going forward with obviously the reflections on the family legacy and something that's been part of your family for 105 years?
Yeah, well, George House was an innovator. I think that's one of the biggest elements of his legacy. So, we want to be striving to improve all the time, to move the franchise forward, to bring championships to Chicago. We want to celebrate our history and strike that balance between what's an appropriate recognition of what has been accomplished before and striving for excellence in the future.
That's an emotional George McCaskey there, Mark. What was your reaction?
The first thing that comes to mind is, God bless George McCaskey, because, as we are, Dan, you and I are put in a position where we have to be objective and critical, and sometimes very critical of George McCaskey. Lord knows I have been, but at his base, this is a real human being. He's a good guy.
Yes.
And I felt all of that. And I imagine that in the intimate setting that he was with you reporters, that probably, we're humans too.
Yeah.
So that's the first part I'll say, man. Like, I love George, and and I'll be fair. Trust me. Like, when there needs to be critiques, I know I have done them and I will continue to do them, but that's a real human moment right there. It obviously sounds like Virginia put them in a position to, as George said, execute the plan, a smooth transition, made things easy for them. And if you're taking George at his word, they are desirous of keeping this in the family's hands. I'd imagine that there will probably be changes along the way. I'm anxious, Dan, to hear what you think about the whole thing, and if this is as easy as, yes, the McCaskeys will continue to own this team, or at least that will be the plan going into the future and maybe the next 100 years.
Well, you have to focus on a couple key words in what we heard from George there, and it's we've got to stick together. And so with any family business, there's going to be spirited conversation. Anything of this level of significance, there's going to be debate. There's going to be differing viewpoints. And I kind of asked him in a separate session, how he was doing with that whole keep the family together. I'm going to read you a quote that was in my Tribune article for today, but he said, part of my parents' process was to have us study other family businesses. That was to anticipate and avoid pitfalls. And I think history shows us that in any family, two of the biggest enemies are greed and jealousy. So we are working on that trust and communication to avoid those pitfalls. And I said, are you succeeding? And he said, it's an ongoing process. It's a constant challenge. Right. Like, so you are at this complicated time in team history, and as human, as these situations are, they're also very, very high stakes, And so if you've got some people in the family that are like, let's get rid of this, let's sell this football team, man. Yeah, right. Like, that complicates things. And I asked George directly, I said, look, like the last time we sat in Soldier Field, we heard an entire stadium chanting, sell the team, sell the team. And you can discount that as sort of knee-jerk emotion in the moment, but there are a lot of people that make that request reasonably on a weekly basis, right? And so how do you respond to them? He has no intention of letting this football franchise out of his family's hands, but he's not the only one involved, right? Like, there are three other McCaskey brothers on the board of directors. There's a big family behind that. Pat Ryan is someone that is obviously on the board of directors as well. There's a lot of complicated factors here for everyone to consider and talk through and sort through. And I think you got a sense from George in both what I read and the clip we played that this isn't going to be easy. As good as the succession plan seems to be that Virginia and obviously the late Ed McCaskey started, there's a lot that goes into this. No doubt. I just think that when the person at the top, which is where George is desirous of keeping the team in the family, that's going to carry heavy influence and drive the day. And I know, I agree. I mean, we've been hearing about this for the last 2 decades, Dan, about people within the organization and within the family on the board that may want to sell, liquidate, all that kind of stuff. People we don't even know in the family. McCaskey made it to 102, right? Like, so this didn't sneak up on anybody, right? No. Like, this is something that they've had to think about for quite some time.
We're just now starting to get some insight and some answers on something that has been whispers for the and again, we all have our sources. We all have people who give their opinions, who have influence that sometimes we can bring to the air and sometimes we can't. Sometimes we just use it to sound like we are educated on the topic. But you're right. This is just the beginning of the real decision to be made, whereas everything was peripheral the last 2 decades. So I'm glad that we were finally able to get some information on ownership. It has begun, and I'm sure that over the next couple of years, like, it's going to be a slow drip in terms of the information that we get and are able to collect, but there will be answers over the next few years.
Before I got vomited on the plane, I was sitting in a courtyard at the Breakers at the Palm Beach and thinking, man, there is so much going on with the Bears team right now. You've got this ownership question, you've got the stadium project, you've got this brand new head coach, you've got this second-year quarterback who everyone thinks is going to be the savior or hopes is going to be the savior. Like, you could have 7 or 8 people follow this football team for one coverage organization full time and not run out of topics to hit.
You know what, Dan? It's ironically, since I tried to skip past the ownership section of the podcast today, that was really, really good stuff. Can I now move on to the 2 minutes without even Studs giving me side eye? Let's get to the 2-minute drill, gentlemen.
The 2-minute drill. The 2-minute drill.
Boy, the draft is coming up. What's cooking? What are they saying about number 10 in the draft at the owners' meetings? And Ryan Poles is there, obviously, and Ben Johnson. We've got lots to talk about.
Crazy that we're 3 weeks away from this. The Bears seem to be intensifying their pre-draft meetings at Haugh here in the near future. Ryan Poles said that the next steps are taking all the information they collected at pro days across the country, bringing that back into the conversation, getting all the finalized medical reports from the combine and elsewhere, adding those to the discussion, and now really starting to set the board and have those deep, detailed discussions on what they want to do. You've heard me now for several weeks talk about this collection of 4 picks, not just number 10, but the collection of 4. And Ryan has mentioned a few times that, like, you have to kind of study depth of positions and start to play probabilities and odds on like who's going to be available where and which positions are going to keep depth to the point that you can use all 4 of those top 4 of their 7-person draft class at this point to make strides forward. So that's a process that will intensify next week, along with the players reporting to Haugh for phase 1 of the offseason program under their brand new coach, Ben.
We will be actually talking to people and watching things and reporting on in our respective outlets. Dan with the Chicago Tribune and the Score. I'll be all over it for the Score as well. It does seem that that Ryan Poles, like all of us, is just as smitten with, intrigued by, excited by Ben Johnson. How was that manifesting itself at the ownership meetings in Palm Beach, Florida? Dan?
One of the things that I took note of in my conversations with Ryan was that the creativity that Ben brings to the table is something that is really kind of familiarly refreshing to Ryan. You got to remember, he came from Kansas City. He saw Andy Reid at his peak, and saw him be able to win Super Bowls and turn loose a playbook that made a lot of defenses have sleepless nights and was really fun for everybody involved with the Kansas City Chiefs. And so I think there's a vision that Ben's going to be able to bring some of that to Chicago. Now, everyone within the Bears organization has been very emphatic that that is not going to happen immediately. There is a buildup to being able to turn loose the fun, and they've got to get good at a lot of other things before we get to the stage of let's run a bunch of trick plays and laterals down the field and letting tackles throw passes. And
let's find out if Caleb Williams can handle under center.
Right. So that's the next step. But I do think that Ben's energy is real. And then the other thing that Ryan said, which I wrote about a little bit for ChicagoTribune.com on Friday morning, is that this little competitive edge that Ben has, it's a little bit underrated and underappreciated. I think Chicago is going to start to love it a little bit. We'll have a little bit more on that in the days to come when we talk a little bit more about that.
He is fancy. That's what I say about Ben. Like you see him coming in with his tight combed hair and looking good. He is fancy, and so far so good with Ben Johnson and so much of what the Bears have done so far in this offseason. The tush push is being postponed. It's been quite a ride with the Green Bay Packers push for that, and for once, back to George McCaskey. They supported the Green Bay Packers on the tush push? What the hell is going on, George?
Bears. He said he didn't want that to get out, that he was in support of who he called, quote unquote, Team Voldemort. That was George's own words. And so that's the fun of George McCaskey. The tush push debate is really interesting because even though the Bears actively supported the Green Bay Packers push to ban it, with George McCaskey predominantly citing health and safety concerns, that was not a unanimous decision within the team itself. And so if teams are even not able to come to a harmonious agreement on that, imagine how a whole league is supposed to come to harmonious agreement on that. What is your take on it? Jeff Joniak was taking votes around the media before we started our sessions yesterday saying, just give me a yes or no vote. Do you want the tush push in or do you want it banned? So you've got to give that vote.
All right. No, I want it banned because when I watch it, I'm like, there's just something about it, Dan. I'm going to be real basic here. There's just something about it which doesn't seem professional. It seems like, even though you're not, to me, it feels like you're breaking your rule. And I'm fascinated by it. And I thought it was hilarious when the referee, what game was it where the referees?
Yeah, it was a playoff game, right? I think it was the NFC Championship game.
That was hilarious. And we had Kaylin Kaler on recently, and she said there's some conspiracy theories that it was that's the reason. That game was the reason that they're talking about banning the tush push, not because of the safety concerns. I just wonder if that's all BS. But I got to tell you, like, if I'm having to get, like, I wouldn't be mad if they kept it. Like, I'm not that passionate about it. But if you're putting me in this position, I will say no, because it looks like a play little kids do.
You hear the sentiment around the league that if it was so easy, why are the Eagles the only ones that really master it? The Bears have tried it a couple times, haven't done great with it. The other teams can't really do it. And so there is one sentiment that says just because that team does it better doesn't mean we should ban it. We should find a way to compete and stop it. I get all of it. The league was obviously very spirited about it this week, decided to push it back to May to have another conversation on it. I wouldn't be surprised if this gets kicked back in May for another year and they just let it ride and then go from there to study it a little bit.
What was your answer to Master Joniak if he's running court out there and like the master out there? What did you say?
He was very angry if you didn't just give a yes or no answer. If you started to explain what you're thinking, no, it's a yes or no vote.
Wow. I listen to him on the radio. He doesn't give a whole lot of yes or no answers to Sylvian Waddle.
So my answer was keep it. Just let other teams figure it out. Now, if there is a very serious scientific-based concern that health and safety is, a concern here, then let's have a deeper discussion about it. But for right now, I'm in favor of just letting it ride.
What did Joniak say? What's his yes or no?
Yes, no. I mean, Joniak is a purist.
I know. So then he's no, right?
No, he wants it in. He believes
he likes to run the ball at the
You got to be mean and tough up front and all that.
I mean, okay, yeah, and then the rest of the reporters. I mean, I'm asking.
I think Adam Haugh was the only no.
Oh, my guy Haugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he had a more educated reason for why no, but yeah, no, it's interesting. Like I said, it's not something I'd be mad if they kept it, but if you're forcing me to do the Joniak process of yes or no, I'll go no on that. Is there anything left here in the 2-minute drill, Dan? I don't want to be premature again here.
Small footnote. Richard Hightower was at the owners' meetings in Palm Beach. Richard Hightower was there to lend a voice to the continued discussion about the dynamic kickoff. We know now that the rule has been changed, that kickoff touchbacks will go to the 35 instead of the 30. This is to encourage more returns. I think there's special teams coaches around the league that are giddy because they don't have to waste time preparing for a play that only happens one every 5 times that everybody goes out on the field. So the spike in expected kickoff returns next year has HT pretty excited, and I think he's not alone in the special teams world.
HT is back, baby. I will say my last note in the 2-minute drill here will be our producer, Adam Studzinski, who, when I said gave you the no because you forced me to give a yes or no, he wrote in this chat, boo, wrong, bad take. So I suppose we could put studs up for an automatic yes on the tush push.
You got it.
And that will be it for today. I thought studs might bounce on here. That is going to do it for the Take the North today. We appreciate everybody for listening. And again,
hey, hold on, I can defend this if you want me to.
I'm sorry, you're not focusing on your other show. Oh, sorry, studs. Yeah.
So okay, like here's the reason that the tush push shouldn't go away. Like number one. This is the original football play. What the Eagles are doing is that's how football was at its origins. They're not doing anything that is anti the game. It's actually an homage. If anything, it's an homage to the origins of the game. The forward pass was an abomination in the 30s.
All right, well, put the leather helmets back on and get rid of the pass.
So, no. Let me finish. The forward pass was an innovative thing, an abomination, and an affront to the game at first.
I hear you.
So now this is just a little bringing back some old school football. That's all it is. Okay. It's not anything. Now look, if they decide that for whatever reason it's unfair for the offense to push the players like that, that'd be one thing, but I don't think how do you go about officiating that the reason that rule went away in the first place, and George talked about this, George McCaskey, the reason that rule went away in the first place is because officials were having trouble ruling whether it was a penalty or not. So now they're going to bring it back and they're going to have the same problem all over again. And ultimately, it feels like teams just want this to go away because the Eagles are good at it and no one else is. So are we really like going to penalize the Eagles for being so good at something? Like if it's such an unfair and unsafe play, why are the Bills so damn bad at it? Why can't anyone else do it well if it's such an unfair play? Like that's my whole thing on it. I think the whole thing is stupid. It's just stupid.
Okay. Wow. All right. Studs coming in strong. I'm actually glad because I don't have a strong opinion on it. I don't think, Dan, I feel like you don't either. So I'm glad Studs came hard on that.
Someone's got to have a strong opinion.
Take. Yeah.
Someone's got to have a strong opinion on this podcast. That's never happened.
Taking strays.
No. We don't give any opinions here whatsoever. We are just milquetoast, let me tell you. Thanks to everybody for watching and listening. We appreciate it. And for Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune, for Adam Studzinski, the executive producer of Take the North, I am Mark Grote. One more thing, just another reminder, April 17th, we're doing that live Take the North show. If you want to be part of it in our Blue Cross Blue Shield studios, once again, 670thescore.com/contest to enter for a chance to win your way in. It's free, no funny stuff. We want to see you there. We appreciate it. Thanks for listening to and watching the Take the North podcast. We'll talk to you soon.
Great talk. See you out there.